So last week we were talking about getting merchandise from a supplier to the retailer. You know, the whole invoicing and shipping costs and trade discounts and stuff like that. Cash discounts and all that. Today we're going to talk about getting stuff from the retailer to the consumer. So the actual direct sales to the consumer. The basic formula we're going to talk about today from the retailer's point of view is that cost plus markup has to equal the selling price. The cost is what the retailer pays for whatever that item is. The markup, well, that's how much the retailer increases the price before they sell it. The markup is to cover two things. Overhead. Can anybody tell me what overhead is? Cost of operations. It can be electricity, rent. Of course, the biggest one in a retail establishment is usually labor. Yeah. Darn employees. If you just automate, it'd be a lot cheaper, right? And then, of course, the other part of the markup covers overhead, but it also covers any potential profit, if there is to be one. And, of course, the selling price, that is what the consumer pays for the goods. Sometimes in between there can be a markdown. Not to be confused with a discount. A discount is generally a term used between the supplier and the retailer. A markdown is like when you go into the store and they say, 30% off, that's considered a markdown. They might even advertise as a 20% discount for whatever, but the technical term that we use is a markdown for that. Bless you. So anyway, there are two types of markup. Bless you again. MU is what I'm going to use for markup, just because I'm lazy. But anyway, there's two types of markup. The one type of markup is what most of us are familiar with. That'll be markup based on cost. And this is what most of us would think of for markup. So the retailer uses a percentage of the cost as the markup. For example, let's say the cost to the retailer again is $12. If that retailer desires a 40% markup on cost, or sometimes called markup based on cost. The way this would be calculated is you would find 40% of the cost. So 40% is 40 out of 100. How much is that out of 12? Well, you cross multiply. 40 times 12 divided by 100 is $4.80. That is the amount of the markup, often referred to as the dollar markup. The 40, by the way, is considered the percent markup. So then, of course, what that means is that retailer turns around and sells that for $12 plus $4.80. So the selling price will be $16.80. Well, you guys know me well enough by now to know that there's always a shortcut, a little bit easier way of organizing it to make it simpler and make more sense. We said that basic formula is cost plus markup equals selling price. Way back in week 3, we discussed percents, percent increases, percent decreases, and we used a little table that looked like this. The starting amount plus or minus an increase or a decrease, equals the ending amount. Remember that table? Well, for this type of situation, it's even simpler. It starts out always as cost plus markup equals selling price. I'm going to use SP to abbreviate selling price because, well, I'm just that ambitious. Just like before, one side of the table has to be a percent, and the other side has to be the other number, and in this case, it's almost always going to be dollars. The cost was $12. The percent markup was 40%. Now, it looks like that's all the information we have, but if you recall, there's always one other piece of information we have. That is 100%. Now, before, we always put the 100% here because that's the starting amount. When we're dealing with markups, we have to be careful. What type of markup was this? It was a markup based on cost. That means that the cost is the base and the 100% goes with the cost. That's very important right there. The 100% goes there because it is markup based on cost. In a few minutes, we're going to talk about markup based on selling price. Where do you think the 100% is going to go then? Selling price. Yeah. So anyway, for right now, it's markup based on cost. The 100% goes on the cost. What has to go down here for selling price? Careful, it's... You're right. Actually, you're right. I'm sorry. 140, yes. I was thinking the other way. I was thinking you got distracted. But no, this is a markup. So we got to add. 100 plus 40 is 140. Didn't mean to chop you down there. So we get 140 there for a percent for the selling price. Now, what are we asked to find here? Were we asked to find the markup or were we asked to find the selling price? I didn't really specify, did it? If we're asked to find the markup, then this is the one we're looking for. We always need two rows out of this table. We need one row where we have both numbers. That's going to be that row in this case. The other row is going to be the row that contains what we're looking for. So if we're looking for markup, that's this row here. So we can do our cross multiply and divide right in the table if we want to. 40 times 12 divided by 100 is $4.80. Now you might be looking at this thinking, why do I want to remember a silly table like this when I could have just done this basic percent calculation and added it on? Well, let me show you. Yeah. Let's say that we have a 30% markup on cost. And we know that the selling price is $26. I want you to find the cost. So again, cost plus markup equals selling price. Percents, dollars. Now, this is markup based on cost. So I'm going to stick the 100% in there right now. What else do we know? Selling price is $26. So on the dollar side, we put in 26 for selling price. The markup percentage is 30%. So that goes on the percent markup. So the selling price will be 130. 100 plus 30 is 130. And we are looking for the cost. So again, we need the row that has both numbers. In this case, that's the selling price. And we need the row that has what we're looking for. In this case, that's this one here. Which means we can totally live without this row here for now. Doesn't mean we don't have to put it in our table. We needed that to find the 130. But it's now that we've done that, we don't need it anymore. So now we can cross multiply and divide. What are we going to cross multiply? 100 times 26, or 26 times 100, and divided by 130 gives us $20 is our cost. If we had tried to do 30% of 26, by the way, 30% of 26 would be $7.20. That would have given us $18.80, which would have been way wrong.
What if we said 26 divided by 1.3?
That's basically what we just did, yeah. That's the shortcut. That's using the rate method instead of the proportion method. Yeah.
Well, that way will work.
That will work, yes.
Is there,
You sure?
I was gonna say, why would you take it by 30, but you already have it at 30%?
Yeah, that's what this is. The 130 is including the 30. But since we don't know what matches up with the 30, we only know what matches up with the 130. That's why I have to use the 130 instead. So let's say we have the cost is $45. The selling price is $81. I want you to find the percent markup on cost. So we're working a little backwards here. But our table looks exactly the same. Cost plus markup equals selling price. Here's our percent. Here's our dollars. What do we know? What can we fill in the table? Cost is $45. Selling price is $81. There's one other piece of information.
100% on cost.
It's on cost. So 100% goes where the cost is. Now what?
Take 81 times 100 divided by 45.
Okay, we could do that. That would find the selling price for us. But what are we looking for?
What is the markup?
We're looking for the percent markup. We're looking for this one here. To find that, if we knew this, we could subtract to get it. Or if we knew this, we could cross multiply and divide to get it. Can we find this number over here?
Divide your selling price by your cost.
Close. This number right here is the selling price minus the cost. Okay, it's $36. Now what?
36 times 100.
Now we can do, yes, we can do the 36 times 100 divided by 45. Because this row has both numbers and this row has the one we're looking for. So we don't need the bottom row. So 36 times 100 is 3,600. Divided by 45 is 80. So this is an 80% markup on cost. What do you think? Better than a sharp stick in the eye? You sure? What's that? Oh, sure. I'll give you a second here. You guys to try a couple in your seats. If I give you that the cost is $60, the percent markup on cost is 30%. Find the dollar markup. I'll give you a few minutes to go at her. What's that?
The dash representing the height.
Oh, that dash is just a stray mark. That's just me being sloppy. So, markup's based on cost, so 100% goes in the cost. 30% markup, so 30% goes in the percent markup. Which would have made this 130 down here, but we don't really need that. $60 is our dollar cost. We are looking for the dollar markup, so we will cross multiply and divide. 30 times 60 divided by 100 is an $18 markup. Next little experiment for you to try. Let's say the cost is $27 and the selling price is $38. And I'm going to ask you to find the dollar markup. Now I'll warn you, I gave you this problem because I'm not really a nice person. And I'll let you off the hook. I realize most of you are probably putting this in the table right now because that's what I've told you to do. we were told that the cost is 27 and the selling price is 38. How do we find the markup? Yeah, 38 minus 27 is $11. Sorry. You would have gotten the answer out of the table just like that, but yeah, I'm not a nice person, I know. That's why I stand at the door and listen for revving engines in the parking lot at night.
What if you wanted to find the markup from that?
From that, the percent markup,
Yeah.
then you could. You'd have to put 100% here and do that. Then you could cross multiply 100 times 11 divided by 27.
Okay.
And of course, 11 divided by 27 will give you some funky little answer. So that'd give you your percent
40,
markup.
27, 4.
Yeah.
Would you round it up in that situation?
I mean, it depends on what it says. It might ask give it to the nearest percent or nearest tenth of a percent or something like that. So it might be 40.7 or 41, depending on what they ask for. So let's say that I give you that the selling price of an object is $56 and the percent markup is 40%. I want you to find the dollar markup. So your table should have started out looking something like this, with the 56 for the selling price. What would go here? 140, and we're looking for this number because we don't need the top row. So this would be 40 times 56 divided by 140, otherwise known as $16. How are we doing on those so far? Good? Screwed that one up. That one's really... Oh, yeah, that's easy to do. So what you found was this. You probably found $40.
About 40 bucks.
Yeah, that would have been the cost. Yeah. Whatever you use over here is what lines up with what you get over there.
All right, so
Yeah.
that's not what it's going to be.
Yeah. So what if I give you the cost is $60 and the selling price is $78, and I ask you to find the percent markup on cost. Once again, go to her. So your table should start out looking something like this. Markups on cost, so you get that 100% in there in the cost. $60 cost, $78 selling price. We are looking for the percent markup on cost, this number here. To find that, we could find this one and subtract, or we could find this one. It's better to find this one over here usually. How do we get that number? Subtract 78 minus 60 will give us $18. So now we don't need the bottom row. 100 times 18 divided by 60 is 30. So this is a 30% markup on cost. Oh, let's see. So let's do a simple one. Let's say our cost is $120. The dollar markup is $60. Find the percent markup on cost. So we'll start out, markups on cost, so I'll put the 100% there. What else do we know? Cost is $120. Dollar markup is 60, which means we get the selling price of 180 if you wanted to add them. We don't really need that though. We're looking for this, so we don't need the bottom row. 100 times 60 divided by 120 is 50, so that's 50%. Markup on cost. If I give you that the dollar markup is $27 and the percent markup on cost is 30%. Find the selling price. So what do we know here? Oops, get back here. 100% of course is going to go on the cost. Okay, the percent markup is 30. And this is 27. And what are we looking for? Looking for selling price. So we can find it. We need to know this one. What is it going to be? Yeah, 100 plus 30 is 130. So we don't need the top row here. 130 times 27 divided by 30 is... Careful. 117. There's the number I'm looking for. So the selling price is $117.
We have the same answer by cross multiplying, dividing 100 times 27 divided by 30.
Then you got this is 90, then you added them. That works too. That's just kind of going in the back door, but that's okay. You never know when you find a dollar bill up there or something.
You maybe. Right.
Anyway, let's say that you're given that the selling price is $42. The dollar markup is $14. Find the cost. We know selling price is 42, markup is 14, and we're asked to find cost. All we're going to do is subtract those $20. Okay, enough of that. We've hammered that one to death. The other type of markup is markup based on selling price. What that means is instead of considering the cost to be 100%, we consider the selling price to be 100%. And our markup is then a percentage of the selling price. Now, the markup that based on cost that we've been discussing, that's what everybody thinks of markup as, is you take what you paid for it, you find a percent, and you add that on. It's an easy way to do it. But in reality, if you're doing the books for a retail operation, when stuff is going out the door, you don't know what you paid for it, you know what you sold it for. And when you're talking about profit margins and stuff like that, it's a lot easier to base everything off of the amount that it rang up on the cash register when the customer was buying it. So using the selling price. So in many cases, basing your markup off the selling price is much more useful. So an example here might be, let's say that the selling price, we're going to sell an object for $40. The markup, percent markup, is 30% on the selling price. Let's find the dollar markup. So our table is still cost plus markup equals selling price. Still percents on one side and dollars on the other. But the difference is right here. This is markup based on selling price, which means the 100% goes on the selling price, right there. Now what do we know? Well, we know there's a $40 selling price, and the markup percent is 30. Now it's still cost plus markup equals selling price. This plus this equals this. What number does this have to be then? 70. 70 plus 30 equals 100. They still have to add up going down the column. It's just the cost is awkward now because we're so used to 100% being here. Now we've got something smaller than 100%. It is a portion of the whole thing now. So now we are asked to find the dollar markup, which will be this number here. So we don't need the top row. 30 times 40 divided by 100 is going to be $12. Which means that product better have cost us 28, right? If things are going to add up. We weren't asked to find that here, but we can find it really quickly by subtracting. So let's say we have the percent markup is 20% on selling price. And our cost is $32. Find the dollar markup. Let's take a look. I'll do one more example before I turn you guys loose on some. Still cost plus markup equals selling price. Percents and dollars. What do we know?
Percent markup of 20.
Okay.
Cost of 32.
The percent markup's 20. Cost is $32. Okay.
The selling price is
The 100% goes with the selling price because this is based on selling price.
cost 80.
So that means the percent cost is going to be 80. Perfect. Because 80 plus 20 equals 100. And then we're looking for dollar markup right there. So we don't need the bottom row. 20 times 32 divided by 80 is what?
8.
$8 markup. What do you think? Not too bad? Well, let's try some examples of this. Well, let's say I'm going to give you that the cost is $36 and the selling price is $60. Find the percent markup on selling price. What do we know?
Cost is 36. Selling price is 60.
Okay, cost is 36, selling price is 60.
100% for the selling price.
100% for the selling price. We're looking for,
Percent markup.
find that out. We either need to know this number here or probably best to find this one, which is going to be what? 60 minus 36 will be $24. Now we're going to ignore the top row. 100 times 24 divided by 60 is 40. So this is 40% markup on selling price. How many of you had that one? Cool. Getting there? Okay. I'll slow down a little bit for you. So let's say we have we have a cost of $48, a dollar markup of, no, what I'll put in here, $72. Find the percent markup on selling price. What do we know?
Cost is 48. Markup is 72.
Cost is 48, markup is 72, and 100% is on the selling price. We can very quickly find
Selling price.
120 for the selling price. Looking for percent markup. We get the top row. 100 times 72 divided by 120, 60. That is a 60% markup on selling price.
Cost percentage would be 40%.
So yeah, cost of 40% then. Yep, perfect. Let's say that we have a selling price of $240. A percent markup is now let's just do this. 35% on selling price. Find the cost. What do we know?
Selling price percent is 100. Markup is 35. And selling price is 40.
This is So markup percent is 35, 100% goes with the selling price. Dollar amount for the selling price is 240. We're finding the dollar cost right there, so we need to know this number right here, which will be 65. So now we can ignore the middle row. 65 times 240 divided by 100 is 156. Works for me. That's the cost.
Keep doing it backwards, is it gonna matter?
You keep finding this number and then just subtracting them?
No, I just keep doing the middle number first. I found 84.
Oh, you found this is 84 and then you subtract it. Yeah, that works. As long as you're getting there.
So
It's a little extra work for you is all, but that's fine.
it's not gonna give me any trouble down the road?
It shouldn't. No. Should be just fine.
It's another way to check it.
It is, yeah.
I'm gonna get in
Don't want to get in trouble. Let's say the dollar markup is $63. The percent markup is 70% on selling price. Find the cost. So this one's just a little bit trickier. It's percent markup on selling price. I like to put the 100% in there first, just because that's the one thing that so many people screw up is they put that in the wrong spot. So I always like to make sure I get it in the right spot first before I do anything else. So then what else do we know? 7% markup and $63 markup. And we're looking for the cost. So we really should have this number here, which would be 30. Because 30 plus 70 is 100. Now we don't need the bottom row. We'll do 30 times 63 divided by 70 should be $27. Well, that looks like a great time to take our break. So let's do that.